We have a highlight episode for you today. These are highlights and golden nuggets from our most downloaded episodes of the year. Today's topic, leadership. With that being said, let's start the show.
And then number 3 is notes on every interaction. That's it, right? So communication, right? That is, we've always used Zoom or some type of, video where we can interact and communicate. That is just a straight game changer for us. And we've used it for the whole time. So where we have it now is we have a virtual office, right? So if you come to a job shadow in my office, you're not coming to a physical location, you're just going to jump on Zoom. But we've set it up to where there's breakout rooms. There's 10, 15 breakout rooms that my team will bounce around from one room to the next, kind of like if it was an actual physical office. You'd have your individual office. You want to go talk to Michael, then you just walk into his office and talk to him. So it is literally the same format, but it's the communication just is through the roof of what is available, because there is no reason for my 6'8" self to come sit next to you and talk to you and train you when we could be in totally different places or totally different atmospheres, and be able to screen share, be able to see each other face to face, and be able to communicate, be able to learn, be able to teach. So that Zoom format and using those breakout rooms has been huge. The scoreboard part of it and actually the tracking of the numbers is, I'm a basketball player, so my coach always told me, always know time and score. And in a sales industry that it's about activity, you need to know what you need to do every single day, and you need to have accountability to it. So one of the things that we do is every morning we do have a quick little huddle with the team before the phones start going crazy and that whole tornado happens. We talk about the numbers and what we did from the day before. But I think that a lot of agents do that. I think the one of the things that we do that is different that really helps us is, the Chiefs about to go to the Super Bowl. So imagine if Andy Reid was like, hey guys, here, go run this play today, run these plays, and I'll check in tomorrow and see how it went. So the in-game adjustments, I think, are really key. And so 2 really simple things we do are just having little quick huddles, like a 30-second timeout at 11:30 and a 3:30, where everybody just barges into a call or barges into a Zoom room, and we run through our numbers. So, hey, this TJ's got 5 quotes, Stephanie's got 4, Crystal's got 3. Hey, John, you only got 1. Our goal is to make sure that we got 8 every day, and it's 11:30. You have to pick it up. So, hey, when we're back on there at 3:30, make sure that you've turned that around by then. And so we're checking our key performance tracking, characteristics. So the calls, the quotes. We also track talk time because we're looking for quality conversations compared to just the quantity of them. But obviously the end goal is more presentations, more quotes. But those quick little timeouts, obviously 11:30 is before they go to lunch, and 3:30 is, everybody's done at 5. So 90 minutes left in the day to finish out the day. But when everybody leaves at 5 o'clock, they know, did we win or did we lose based on our activity? And there's no, again, I'm virtual, right? So I know what every person on my team is doing at any moment, because we're doing up-to-date tracking on their activity, and the activity that is going to help them to achieve the results that they want to achieve. The last thing is just notes on everything. So in a virtual world, paperless is just a no-brainer. You have to be paperless. So a person in St. Louis is talking to a customer that then the phone gets picked up later in Springfield. There has to be a note on every single piece of communication. And the fact that we are just so particular about that, it saves us a ton. It allows us to, cover ourselves if somebody says, oh, you didn't add that car, oh, this didn't happen. So our rule is, if there's no note, it didn't happen. And because we're so adamant on taking notes on every single conversation, if there is no note, it actually didn't happen. Because unfortunately, we are kind of guilty until we can prove our innocence when it comes to a customer, because the customer is always right. But they forget things like that they didn't add the rental car coverage or the roadside, but they only need it when they need it. And, oh, I thought that was on my policy. Well, no, we sent you 6 renewals over the last 3 years and it was never on there. So it's not there. But the notes are just are so critical. So everybody has to have that. And I'm not a great organized person, but for one, to know that it's in there, kind of a CYA type thing, but 2, that, say somebody picks up and, oh, Michael's at lunch. Okay, cool. Well, let me have him call you back. That's just totally inefficient and it's a bad customer experience. If someone has halfway decent notes, they can pick it up and finish it and move on. So we're all about trying to help each other out. And I think notes is, I probably maybe I'm preaching to the choir about it, but it's critical in a virtual environment that we're taking notes in the system. We're not double doing it where we write it on a piece of paper and then we turn around and type it up. So if you're sitting at my desk and looking at what you could see right here, it's a phone and usually like 2 things of water, like a coffee and a drink, and that's it. Because everything is put into the system without paper.
I love that. So communication, tracking activity, and notes.
So you have psychological safety. How do you build that? How do you sustain that? What does that even look like?
Yeah. So it all starts with you. So psychological safety is really about making sure that you allow for vulnerability in your business. It's very not like old traditional leadership, which was very authoritarian and rigid. This is about you as a leader showing your team that it's okay to be vulnerable. So what does that look like? That looks like I'm the leader of the company and I've just made a mistake. Instead of making excuses or blaming why the mistake happened, I take full responsibility and I say, guys, man, did I ever make a mistake? Here's the mistake that I made. Here's why I made that mistake. Here's what I learned from it so that it doesn't happen again. So you make mistakes okay. You show that you're infallible, that you are okay making mistakes, that there is a gift in those mistakes. And that gives your team permission to do the same. So suddenly they stop being afraid of making mistakes. Suddenly they start making decisions on their own without having to come to you to fix all of the problems and answer all of the questions. And that's just one single thing. Like my team will tell you, I apologize easily because I make mistakes, right? So if you apologize easily, they know she apologizes easily. I can apologize easy. I can take responsibility for my stuff. She calls out her own mistakes and says what she learns about it. That makes me feel safe to do that as well, right? And it's little things like popping into someone's office to just say, hey, how was your weekend? And looking them in the eye. It's when someone has a conversation with you, give them your full undivided attention. Don't be looking at your phone or doing something on your computer while they're trying to have a conversation with you. It's showing people that it's okay to be human and that you care about them as a human being. And there are like 150 different things that you can do to build psychological safety in your organization. But for me, I really think that we've built psychological safety very quickly because of my willingness to be vulnerable. Like me totally goofing up on a webinar and owning it in front of the entire audience and like laughing it off, right? Shows them that they can make a mistake and laugh it off too. I mean, we did a webinar one time. This was crazy. We did a webinar one time. I forgot to maybe I shouldn't tell this story.
Now you're like, hold on. All right, let's get it.
We did a webinar one time. We had like 1,200 people on this thing. It was our very first Zoom webinar, like kind of right in the middle of COVID when everyone had to pivot and go to Zoom. So we were doing like our first big event. There was like 1,200 people or something, 1,400. I don't know. A lot of people. And I forgot to set the Zoom so that people couldn't take control of our screen. And we had pornographic hijackers drawing penises on the screen. And I'm up there and I'm like, oh, okay, well, guys, that's not part of the show. We're really not about drawing penises. And then I said, never thought I'd say penis on a webinar in front of 1,200 people. And I had to I just had to own it. Like, whoops, we're learning. Like, stay with us, guys. We'll get this figured out. And then my digital media producers got it figured out, and we moved on.
So, like, if your vision is big enough, it's going to require a team, and to have a team, you're going to have systems to be able to do it. So, as I began to kind of look through, okay, I've got to transition from being the rainmaker of my business. How do I want to do this? And so, it was being in the rooms that these people would show me playbooks, structure, and I would say, okay, I'm going to do that. I tell you, I later on became an EOS implementer. I'm not an EOS implementer anymore, but that became a very good basis for things. And so I was a professional implementer. That was the actual basis of my coaching program initially. I transitioned out of that, and we'll talk about that if you want me to, as to why specifically. But I really do love the traction EOS. That methodology is really fantastic stuff. I don't think it's great for small businesses, but we'll come back to that. So really, when you make the transition from becoming the rainmaker to the architect of your business, you start to see yourself differently. You become the architect of your business, which means you create the actual structure in the organization that's needed for it to be able to scale. The words you use matter. So we talk about creating assets. So when a little saying for you is income follows assets. We were just at the beach. I was at a retreat with some folks last week, actually. And we were talking about this, like we were at the Airbnb literally across the street from the beach. And we were talking about how much that Airbnb can rent out per night compared to the house that's just across the street. Okay. Similar size. So the idea is that asset that's on the beach can garner more in, nightly rental on Airbnb, right? Because it's on the beach. So therefore, income follows assets. And I think the exact same thing is true in our business. We just don't use that language. So that unique way that you sell is an asset to the business. The way you onboard a client is a unique asset to the business. And the way that I share with people now is any frustration or stress that you have is likely an asset deficiency. And so if you can think in terms of, I've got this frustration, what's the asset I can actually build? Sometimes it's a playbook. Sometimes it's a pitch deck. Sometimes it's a offer stack PDF or something like that. I mean, it can be different things. Playbooks can be one of those. Those are ones that oftentimes people talk about, playbooks or SOPs. I like to use playbooks instead of SOPs. But that language that you use really matters because you start to see yourself differently. Instead of everything going through you, now you've actually got the structure, the system in place that you can hand that off to be able to get it through other people, specifically your team. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're talking about removing yourself as the bottleneck and really
Exactly.
creating this, standard operating procedure, SOPs, playbooks. How do you clone yourself? How do you duplicate yourself? Which I love. But as a business owner, I'm listening to this and I'm like, yes, Bradley, I'm in it. I understand. Now what do I do? Because when I look at my business, there's multiple points of frustration. And I might not have the time or revenue to hire somebody. So where would you encourage somebody to start in this situation?
Well, I would definitely argue against the fact that you say that, or somebody else says that they don't have the time. I think that you do have the time. It's where you point your time. So I shared this with a business owner yesterday that he made a comment. He said, yeah, sometimes you have to take a step back to go forward. And I said, no, I don't think so. I think you have to sometimes shift it into low gear and slow down to speed up. No business owner listening to this ever wants to go backwards. Nobody wants to go backwards, but they can get the concept of maybe I need to slow this down a little bit to speed up. Okay, so I'll give you kind of a hack here. I did this literally yesterday with somebody. So I pulled up Google Docs and we were talking about something. And so I dictated out basically what the business owner was talking about. So I dictated it out and it was probably half of a page on a Google Doc, something like that. I copied, pasted that into ChatGPT and said, hey, I need you to reorganize this and make this into a playbook. And it did amazing. And I said, there you go. There is the beginning. Is it a done playbook? No, it's not a done playbook, right? It's not at all, but it's the beginning of it. I showed a few other people. I said, do you have a playbook for how you want to onboard your new customers or clients? They're like, no. But by the way, that's an asset to the business.
Yeah.
I said, we'll create one. Use ChatGPT. It will get you started. Because when I was in college, I remember I had a paper that was due, and I waited till the last minute, of course. I remember seeing the cursor just blink. I was like, man, I don't even know where to start. And I think a lot of business owners truly don't know where to start. And the thing about it is, your team, you're right, they cannot read your mind. They cannot read your mind. They can read a document. And so if you can just begin to get it out of your head and utilize a tool like ChatGPT to begin to kind of organize it, that has been a huge catalyst in 5 or 10 minutes for people to be able to say, oh, I actually can create that playbook. I've got a client who loves to hunt. I think, Michael, you're a big hunter, if I'm not mistaken. Are you? Are you not a big hunter?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've done so. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I just went bass fishing for the first time, and I'm like, I need to become a professional bass fisherman. This is fun.
All the outdoorsy things.
Well, it's skill acquisition. You could do that. So I told him, I said, you've got so much drive time to these places around the country. You could be cranking out these playbooks. Because he was thinking he's going to have this massive session where he sits there and locks himself into a room for 2 weeks, into a dark room, and he comes out with like 72 playbooks. I'm like, no, that's not how you do it. That's not how you build a playbook on the fly. And so I think when people begin to kind of realize, not lower the bar, but actually just get started in something and then maybe use a tool like that, then they begin to say, oh, okay, yeah, I actually can begin to create an onboarding playbook for a new team member, an onboarding playbook for a new customer. And obviously, if they work with you, you give them a lot of that stuff that's going to be the cheat sheets. They're like, oh my gosh, I already have this. I can adopt it and kind of modify it a little bit to how we do things here. That's awesome.